Hey guys, this is Cooper House, and he's a good friend of mine. We've gone to college together, met in Young Life, started businesses alongside each other. And today I want to focus on his time starting Tidy Cleaning Company from nothing, the bedroom of his house, to making six figures within the first year.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat about it. So I guess what I was saying is in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be in design, thought I wanted to be a lot of different things. When I first moved to Bend, I was in school I was in the fire program at CUCC. Um, and then I was also in the business program at Cascades. So I was kind of all over the place, I guess. And then it's at a certain point, I knew I just wanted to not work for anybody and work for myself and own a company or business in some capacity. I didn't know what it looked like or what, even now, what I want to do. Um, but I did not like school, other than the fact that I was around people.
Yeah.
uh, so I guess when I first moved out there, I still didn't know really what I wanted to do, and I ended up transferring. And when I transferred, that's when I went into the design program at Oregon State because they had the business. It was in the business school or whatever, and had the design under it. And so I was doing that, and then I mean I was still working at Dutch Brothers at the time, so I had been there for 2 years at that point, and I transferred around and was a shift lead or was going to be a shift lead at that point. So really thought that's what I was going to do. Like I 100% thought I was going to own a Dutch Brothers. Um, and so when I ended up leaving Corvallis and coming back to Bend and transferred back and was leading a stand in Bend, I totally thought that's where I was going to be. I had dropped out of school, was just doing Dutch full time. And I was kind of dead set on that for a long time.
hmm
Um,
Well, I have my notes in here that you also
yeah,
worked for Red Bull. Is
yeah,
it affiliated at all with
yeah.
them?
That was. I guess that was at the time in Corvallis that I was working for Red Bull. I was working for Dutch Brothers and Red Bull at the same time. Um, I really didn't have much of an experience at Red Bull. I think because I was got plugged in when I was in Corvallis, but didn't. I was technically the Cascades rep, so I didn't ever really have like a connection because I was out in Bend. No one came to Bend. I was basically just handing out Red Bull for fun and making
Mhm.
a little bit of money off of it. So wasn't really, I didn't learn a ton, I guess, from that other than the fact that Red Bull's brand is so strong and that's why they do so well. And
Mhm.
all the events they put on and everything that they do, even though it seems stupid or silly sometimes, everything they do has a purpose behind their brand and their brand is so driven in that way. I think that was probably the biggest thing I learned. Um, and that's the same with Dutch Brothers is there's such a name behind it that pushes that forward, whether you like their coffee or not. Like people are always going to try it when it comes into their city as more
Mhm.
and more as they expand. Um, so I think that was probably the biggest thing I learned from Red Bull and Dutch Brothers in general. Um, and just kind of putting yourself out there with that Red Bull job, you kind of just talk to everybody and meet random people and meet new people and um, so I don't know. That was a fun job,
But you're at
but I
Dutch
still thought,
Bros. You're at Dutch
what?
Bros, and then did you see that there was a cap to your time there, or that there was no?
Yeah, I think I always thought I was gonna own a stand or own a
Uh-huh.
franchise. And my natural progression was I was gonna be a shift leader, and then I really wanted to be in their mob, which is their team that like goes out and starts the new stands and trains people. That was like my goal, and then I was gonna, I had all my steps after that of what I was gonna do, and I talked to people about getting this job because applications for that job only opened up like twice a year. And I had finally gotten the requirements to apply, did all this stuff, had everybody's backing in the like Central Oregon stands, um, and went through two interviews and then didn't get the third interview. And there's like three people around me that got it and like got the job. And like I I was like, there's no way I did not get this. Like, and these people did.
Mm.
And at that moment, that's when I was like, well, I'm done. Like, I think this is it. Like, this is God telling me, like, this is not what I got for you. Like, you thought this was perfect and what you had planned and everything. And like, there's something so much bigger for you. Um, and so less than 6 months later, I quit and started working as the car buyer for a dealership in Central Oregon. Learned a lot from
How'd
that
you
job.
land on that job? How come you just switched gears and you wanted to get into the car
Yeah,
industry?
I think I met the owner at the gym and had known him for a while, and he had heard that I was looking for a change, and the owner of the gym kind of recommended me for the job. And a couple weeks later, I started it, and kind of started that up, and that gave me a taste of my own business, I guess, in a sense, because at that point I knew I wanted to do something on my own, and was really just kind of creating something of my own there in Central Oregon, of like the first person to do that job of buying all the cars from Kelly Blue Book and online and stuff for dealerships, and private parties, and going out and looking at cars and going to people. So I think that gave me a sense of building something on my own, but then also building something for somebody else, which kind of gave me the itch of like, well, I know I can build something, no matter what it is. And I think that doing it for somebody else, like sitting back and realized how much money I made them versus how much money I actually
Mhm.
made, like in my paycheck, was super interesting to look at. Um, Bounced around a little bit, and then I ended up being a recruiter at a job of a guy that I bought a car from for Kindle. I was a technology recruiter, um, for just random jobs that they would hire for, and I only worked for him for about 6 months. But during that period is kind of when I, had was really wanting to start my own thing, and that's kind of when I landed on Tidy. Um,
And
at
where,
that
before you
point.
jump into Tidy, you're involved with Young Life. You're living with some of your best friends from high school and college.
Hmm. Hmm.
And as far as I know, there was this spirit of entrepreneurship kind of
Hmm.
just boiling in the house. That you're watching other
Hmm.
people build stuff. And was that an inspiration for you? Is that kind of like you're seeing them taste some success and you're thinking to yourself, this is my time now to
Hmm.
step into it and to do something on my own? How
Hmm.
did you come up with the
Yeah,
idea of starting?
we it was just I think a privilege that we got to live all together. Especially in that starting time, because I think we're all in the same spot in a different, my good friend Brett he was a real estate agent at the time, knew he wanted to start something. Adam was still kind of doing school, knew he wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to do something. We were kind of all in different parts of life, I guess, or career or whatever it was, with kind of a similar goal at that time.
Mhm.
Which I think being surrounded by that and kind of being like minded, it was pretty easy and a natural progression just to kind of do it. Um, Rather than being like in a dorm room with everybody that's in school going for a degree, your mindset just kind of shifts no matter what, being surrounded by that.
Yeah, a
Um,
little more inviting.
yeah. Yeah. So when I was at the dealership, Brett and Adam had started their junk removal company at that time, and had a truck and a trailer, and we're doing that. And obviously, so I heard about that every day. I heard about that every night, about what they were doing, what was working, what was not working, and just being in the home service industry. Um, Everything has its, goods and bads and pros and cons, but um, I think that it was just kind of easy to like hear about it and like know that it can work by stuff they were doing, whether it was on a big scale or large scale. Um, and so I remember talking to Brett and just kind of being like, well, what could I do in this, in this industry, in the home services, and cleaning is very low entry, like really no upfront money. You can do it without anything really, couple $100. And I had had a little bit of experience, I guess, with turnovers and cleaning, volunteering at Washington Family Ranch 3 summers as a housekeeper. So I understood like kind of a standard and like what timing looks like, and what teams can look like, and speed, um, and supplies and stuff like that. But outside of that, I had no real experience in the cleaning industry. which I think is also nice that you don't really need any experience either to be in it and do well. Um, so I guess that's kind of where the idea came from, was just seeing someone else in the services, friends tell me what would work, what could work, and then kind of went from there.
So from the time of brainstorming and deciding that you want to start your own thing to the time you took your first step towards specifically house cleaning industry, how much time was that?
I mean, it had to have been a month, maybe. I remember like just kind of having what I think a lot of people have is just kind of the fear to start, and like where do you start, and like what's important to actually do, and how do you actually get something going. I It's way overcomplicated, and like I had so many questions of like, well, I need to make a logo first, I need to make this first, I need to have business cards first, and it's like that stuff is great, but that's not going to make you money. So I think the first thing that really started it was I made a Craigslist ad for house cleaning, came up with it, posted it, and then was driving to Portland. And by the time I got to Portland, I had someone calling,
Wow.
like a Google Voice number, and we had
Immediately, within
immediately had
first
someone
hours.
calling off a random Craigslist ad. We still help her today,
Wow,
um,
that's amazing.
and you know, and that was kind of the start. And I had nothing really behind it. I didn't even have an LLC at the time. I had no insurance. I had nothing, but I had someone who went in business. So it just showed me like there is something here, and there's something I can do um, to make money. So that's kind of where it started, very small.
And did you go back from Portland and go immediately to that woman's house to clean it?
No, I had called her, talked to her, scheduled a job for like 2 weeks out, I think, at that time. And I was calling all my friends that I used to work with at coffee shops and different places. And I ended up getting in touch with a girl I worked at Dutch Brothers, and she did that first cleaning for me. So I, to this day, have not done a residential cleaning. So my first cleaning was done by a friend, and hired her on for a few, and then just started putting out another Craigslist for more cleaners, and kind of just grew it that way. It really started at Craigslist, um, which is $20 for a job post, and for an employee post, and $5 or whatever for a job, or a posting looking for work. Um, and so that's kind of really where it started, was that right there.
So from day one, you decided and you could see foreshadowing that you wanted to scale this thing. You didn't
Hmm.
want to bind up your own time as being a laborer. You decided right away you're going to find someone to clean the house as you found the clients that needed the houses cleaned.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the same time, during all this, I was still working um, my recruiting job from an office in Bend. And, I think that first posting was in September, I want to say. Um, and by the time November of 22 hit, it was getting to the point where I was taking like cleaning calls in my office. Like I would have to step in the conference room, make sure, like I was taking these calls privately. So like my boss wouldn't hear. And I'm taking these calls in the other room, and like getting to the point where I was talking to my dad, I was like, dude, I don't know, like when's the point of like, do I just go all in? Like when is the Lord telling me like I have this for you, just go? Like, we were making money at the time, not a lot, but money was coming in, and um, I just didn't know when that point. It was like, well, I know I can go bigger and better if I don't, if I just focus all on this. But at the same time, where is the safety net? And I was really praying about it. Didn't know what to do because I was taking these calls all day, answering emails more than I was doing my other job. And um, I'd walked into my office in December, on December 1st. And so, Tide had only been going for 3 months, really 2.5 months at this time. And on December 1st, I walked in, my boss laid me off. And that was the first time I've ever been laid off or fired from any job. There just wasn't
Wow.
enough work coming in, and it just wasn't working out. So walked in and basically was like, well, I guess that's it. So I walked home and got back to the house, and Brett and Adam were leaving the house at that time. And like, what are you doing home? And I was like, I just got fired. And so I ended up packed a backpack and went to the office they were at that day and just started working with them and just started going all in. And from that point forward is kind of when December, January, every month after that, it just got bigger and better every month, and just kept growing from there.
So why did they initially fire you? What did they say?
There was at that time there was just not a lot of people hiring. It was a two-person company at that time of a guy that has done really well in recruiting, had sold a company, had started this one up again, and he was kind of doing it all and didn't really have a ton of time to train me. So I was just kind of trying to figure it out on my own, but at the same time not doing a good job because I didn't know what I was doing,
You're
and
taking
there
calls
wasn't
in the
enough work,
conference room every day.
wasn't enough time. Yeah, so it just didn't work out, which is all part of the Lord's plan, but it just was
But
not working.
it's easy in hindsight to look back and be like, okay, that was the Lord answering my prayer.
Oh
But
yeah.
did it feel immediately the same day that you got fired? Did it feel like, thank you, God, this is the answered prayer? Or was it more like,
Yeah.
smokes,
It was a
what
little
am
bit
I
of
doing?
like, well, because it had been the weeks leading up to that, like, when do I quit? When do I move on? How do I do this? Like, when do I leave this job? Like, what's going on? Like, what do I do? Um, because I was close to the owner and we had worked side by side for a while, but you know, I just didn't know how to break it. Or like I was really telling myself, like, oh, the start of the new year, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. Didn't know, didn't know, didn't know. And so when that happened that day, I was like, well, like I guess I'm just doing tidy. There wasn't really a like I didn't know what to do. So I was kind of getting fired and had a smile on my face in his office of
That's
like,
good.
okay, well, I know, this is it. Like I'm stoked. Like I get to do this now. Like I don't have to worry about upsetting this guy or, whatever it may be. I was just like stoked to be able to start something and keep going on this thing I already had.
And so, Cooper, I want to ask you, how did you come up with the name Tidy?
Um, I think my mom came up with it. I was just like trying to spitball names and like come up with something. And my mom came up with the name like Tidy. And so I came up, I was like, well, I don't, it feels so generic. Um, so
It's
I
spelled
just changed the,
Tidi, right?
yeah, changed the Y to an I and just called it Tidy and went from there. I didn't really focus too much on the name rather than just like getting going, like
Hmm.
doing something. I'd rather have 100 clients with a bad name than a good name and none.
Yeah, that's good.
Uh,
It's good that you started with that focus and that perspective.
yeah,
Get to the customer. And so that was in 2021 or 2022.
that was in 22, got fired leading up to 23. And then 23 is really when I was in full on like go mode.
And so take me through the year 2023. Started January, you're all in full time.
Hmm.
You're still in Bend, still in the same house
Hmm.
with all the other guys. What's your day look like? Do you have an office space? Are you going door to door, making calls? How are you getting more customers? How are you scaling this thing?
Yeah. At that time, the guys we were all in co-working spaces. So I just have a hard time working out of my house or wherever I'm at. So I got to go somewhere, whether it's a coffee shop or something. So the junkless guys were working out of a co-working spot that they had in Bend. And then, I didn't have a spot really yet because they were in a smaller space. And at that time, I just started emailing co-working spaces, offering cleaning in exchange for an office, whether I cleaned it myself or someone else did. I sent out like 10 emails, and then the next day someone got back to me and was like, yeah, well, we'll trade you an office for cleaning. And so that's how we got our first commercial client. Um, and the plan was never to be in commercial, but it happened kind of easily and naturally. Um, that we kind of just moved into that space, and I got an office on the west side of Bend, was working out of a little office, cleaned the office that we were in. Um, and that's where I was working out of. And that was kind of my day is I'd go there, work, come back, we'd clean it twice a week. I'd answer calls all day, sending out emails, cold emails, because that's what I was used to in other jobs, like cold emails, cold calling, real estate agents, property managers. That's kind of where we were at. And wasn't spending a ton in marketing rather than just calling who I knew and finding lists of people and doing mass emails out and just trying to find business that way, the free way.
That's amazing. So you weren't spending money on ads?
Not yet. I think by the time spring hit, I did, but I wasn't spending a ton of money on ads. We were trying to email people and doing a lot of commercial stuff then kind of grew of me just reaching out to people and walking in, dropping off my card places. Um, and that's kind of how we were growing right then for the first couple months of me going all in on it. Yep.
So 2023 was a success. You're able to scale the company, grow it, be focused on it full time. How was it leading into 2024?
Yeah. So 2023, we really like we started to see money come in. I was basically just trying to figure out how to run a business, like how to hire people, how to like find jobs, treat customers, do all that stuff, make processes. And by 2024, I felt like we were kind of running smoothly. We had some good commercial contracts. We were cleaning commercially 6 nights a week, um, cleaning all day long. So we're really cleaning 24/7, which was awesome. I didn't really have to worry about the commercial side. I had two people doing it that were really never needed any guidance. Like they just did it every night, no questions, like never had a problem, which was awesome. Freed up a ton of cash for us to use in marketing and stuff like that because there wasn't a lot of issues. Um, I had a general manager at the time that had been with me close to the start, and she was doing okay. She was a really great cleaner. I wasn't getting a ton of help on the back end. And that's kind of how we entered into 2024. Um, into that, we picked up a really large construction contract with a home builder, which started in Bend, had Redmond, and then they started to expand everywhere. So we were slowly getting a lot of work from them. We were growing really exponentially, with just so much work from them, like five jobs a day from them, on top of our regular stuff, on top of commercial. And it felt really good, like having that much money coming in and like that much work to do. Um, but looking back, even now, 6 months later, we had no real base of like leadership or like processes or really anything. Like, because we had grown so fast and me doing this by myself, like, and not having a general manager helping on the back end at all, we didn't really have like how do we train and how do we communicate with our new employees and how do they fit in with us and what does that look like and what are our cleaning standards, how are we cleaning, who is cleaning the same, are we cleaning on the same list, like what does that even look like? And so that was kind of all building up to the point where we got so many jobs from this construction company on top of our residential, on top of commercial, where we were missing jobs, which is not what we ever had happen. We were missing jobs of construction where we couldn't get there. We didn't have enough people to get there. We couldn't hire fast enough. And it just felt like we were hitting the ceiling of like, we can't go anymore. Like something's got to change. Um, and commercial too was getting a little weird. And it all kind of happened at once where our commercial team was like, hey, we're moving, we're moving out Eastern Oregon. We're not going to, we're pursuing something else. And that's when I was like, all right, well, I want to be really good at residential. I have no desire right now to be in commercial. So I ended up giving all my contracts away to somebody else that I knew that was in the business. So we got rid of commercial. So we were just trying to focus on construction and residential, and construction was just getting too much. We didn't have a good team. Like people were dropping the ball. Like I was trying to figure out how to get people there no matter what, whether they're doing a good job or not. Like I just needed someone to show up. The construction team didn't have a good management system or scheduling system. I was spending so much time on that other things were failing. So we did not really have a team at all, or a good set of employees or company culture whatsoever. Um, and so I ended up reaching out to the construction team and being like, hey, like, this is not working. Like, what you guys are doing is not working. What we're doing is not working. We can't keep up. At this point, they're in 5 different locations, 5 different communities across Central Oregon. It just wasn't working. Um, so we ended up dropping them and just going straight to residential. And then on top of that, my general manager was like having a lot of issues. We were having a ton of issues, her not showing up, her being late every day. And really that is when I knew that the business is going to take a big turn for the good or the bad. And we ended up parting ways with the general manager that we had been with for 2 years. And at that point, we lost business. She took business with her, like really was in broke a lot of non-compete. Like this stuff happened, and like looking back is like where we're at now. We are not doing as many jobs as we were. We don't have as many contracts as we did. We have less employees, but our team right now, if we were at that point, that we were, we would be in a way different spot of where we would be still bringing in more business and hiring good people because we have a good manager in place now that when we have good people under her now that are trained well, that communicate well, because we took a big step back, which took a step back from money too, of like we're making less money right now than we were 6 months ago. Um, but I would so much rather be where we are now, building back to where we will be in 6 months or a year, wherever it takes to get back to that point of that much money and what we were doing. But we will be making more money at that point. People will be happy, customers will be happy, employees will be way more happy because we have stuff built up and went through that kind of adversity through like figuring out what works, what doesn't work, like seeing what people are in places that they need to be and like training the people they need to be training and getting the stuff in order to be ready for when that work comes because it will come. And when that work goes away, we still have that good base of good people. And that's kind of what we got back to after kind of all that change and that happened in like 2 months really of all that happening. We kind of got back to the roots of like finding good people and training well and like making customers happy, whether we're doing 20 jobs a day or 10 jobs a day.
Wow, that's amazing. And Cooper, how much longer do you see yourself with Tidy? What's your end goal with Tidy? Is this a company that you want to pass on to your firstborn son?
Yeah, I don't think so. I love the service industry. I want to be in a business next that has a little bit more barrier of entry to be an employee and to work. I want there to be some type of certification or training or something that you need to have to get into. It weeds out a lot of competition in the business space, and it gives you a little bit higher set of employees that actually had to work for something to get the job. um, I think that's whether that's in home services or something else. I think that's where I want to go next. But right now, I'm just slowly building, just building every day, working every day, doing the same thing every day. I'm just trying to get more people, more jobs, more employees, more good people with us and building into something. I don't know what it's going to look like in 2 to 3 years. I mean, I want to be the biggest cleaning company in Central Oregon with residential and Airbnbs. Um, I think we can get there. It'll just take time and doing the same thing every day, just building slow.
It's amazing. What advice would you give yourself? Say you were 19, other 19-year-olds, other 20-year-olds out there that are thinking about taking their first step towards a business. They're scared, they don't know where to start. What things would you tell them?
Yeah. Don't rush. Everything will happen how it's supposed to. I think that I even today, like I still need to work on that of like not rushing like little things. The things will happen when you put in the time and the work every single day, and trust that it will happen and trust the Lord that He will provide. Um, and just taking things slow, slower built things. It'll be bigger and bigger. That stuff will come. The business will come. But focus on the little things like how your employees are doing, what your company is doing, what the team needs, and like focusing on that stuff rather than just trying to get 100 jobs in your schedule,
Mhm.
because that will fail. And just building slow and just taking your time. You got to enjoy the ride. You can't where I'm going to miss these days of like stressing about little things and the employees and stuff like that. So just taking your time and enjoying the moment that you're in right now and just being thankful for what you got.
It's amazing. Do you see yourself going back to, say, Dutch Bros or used car salesman?
No, I'll be cleaning for them one day. We'll have those contracts. That's the goal.
That's good. So you don't see yourself ever stepping back into an employment position.
No, it depends on the employment. I love coaching lacrosse. I'll be employed, hopefully coaching
Mhm.
lacrosse, and I love being in the schools and hang out with high schoolers and leading young life. So I'll probably be a substitute teacher, hopping in, hanging out with kids, just teaching kids, hanging out. But never employed to really rely on income by somebody else.
That's good. That's amazing, man. Well, thank you, Cooper. I think that's all the
Yeah,
questions I have.
easy.
Proud of you, bro. Keep your
Thanks.
head up, nose on the grindstone.
Every day. Every day.